You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. It's currently 6:30 in the morning over in India right now, and we are continuing to monitor Cyclone Amphan, which really shocked the world last night at our time. In fact, not even our time, your time over in India. Early today over here in the UK, our time. I'm so confused with the time zones. But it did reach a phenomenal 165 miles per hour intensity earlier today, and a pressure estimate of 901 millibars. According to Force 13 statistics, that would make it the tied strongest storm ever recorded in the North Indian Ocean. It's a four-way tie with Fani of last year, Kiara of last year, and Gonu. Was it Gonu? No, not Gonu. It was the other one. Oh, which storm was it now? I think it might be the 1999 one. Pressure-wise, it is the second deepest, the second most intense cyclone on record in the North Indian Ocean, or was. It isn't anymore, as you can see. And that is because it had a pressure of 901, which has never been seen before in modern times. The only other time that a pressure lower than that was seen was in the year 1833, we think, when a British ship caught a pressure reading of 891 millibars just off the coast of India, and that storm caused a very large amount of destruction. I can't remember quite how much now, but I do believe it killed on the order of hundreds of thousands. Hopefully, this storm doesn't. We really hope not. What we are hearing is that quite a few people are being evacuated, despite the times we live in right now. And I don't know if anyone has any information on that, but we'll get to hear from them shortly. My name is Nathan Foy in the studio. You'll be able to see me here. Dressed down slightly now. The blazer's off. It's a bit warm in this room, I've got to say. That's probably the main reason why. But that's where we're at right now. The multi-storm view, as you can see, Arthur's gone because the effects of the storm have now passed. So we devote now our full attention on this cyclone, which we're putting at 130 mile per hour winds and a pressure of 934 millibars. I'm joined in this hour by Luke, Isaac, Devon, Elliot, Justin, Orlando, and Xavier. Good evening to you all.
Pleasure to be here.
Good evening.
Hello, Nathan.
It's great to have you all here once again. I guess it's a little bit more complicated than it was 12 hours ago, what we're looking at right now.
Yes.
In more than one way. First of all, we don't now know exactly how strong this storm is, because it's perhaps deceiving us, because the eye is invisible to satellite at the minute. The eye did capitulate earlier on. There was some eye wall replacement cycles. But Devon, you're inclined to believe that the worst is not over.
I wouldn't necessarily say that the worst is not over yet, but I don't think it's going to reach Category 5 again. I think that if it was going to do that, it would have needed to have a much cleaner eye wall replacement than it's had. It's definitely struggled a little bit with it. A good thing. But something to definitely note here now. I just saw RAM actually just came out with a new microwave image, and the eye wall replacement cycle is still very much underway, and the inner eye wall of this has been very ignorant, to say the least.
Ignorant?
which is it's been very stubborn to go away. Wanted to go away, and that has caused a severe disruption within the storm. As you can see, the eye is completely disappeared from infrared imagery, but there is still a very pronounced double eye wall in microwave imagery, and thus it's really difficult to say what this storm's current intensity is. We're going with 130 miles an hour because it's pretty much a middle ground between this still being potentially a mid-range Cat 4 to not even being a Cat 3.
Exactly.
So,
we have obviously our SATID measurements. The raw SATID has been saying numbers less than 115 miles per hour for 6 hours now. But we've got to factor two other things into that. One, it doesn't have an eye fix where there could be an eye in there. And two, we are still coming off that peak. And of course, you've got that lag rule, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. I was actually about to say that the raw Dvorak numbers are pretty much coming up with the same thing in the range of 105 to 110 miles an hour, roughly 105 to 110. So it's not looking extremely impressive on infrared right now, but because it's undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle, looks can absolutely be deceiving, and this is still a particularly dangerous situation that we're looking at here. Once it completes its eye wall replacement cycle, it will have a very short time to re-strengthen. How far will it re-strengthen? It's very unclear at this time. I'd to believe that it wouldn't have enough time to fully die before wind shear starts to increase, which will gradually weaken the storm as it moves closer to shore. But time's really going to tell about how it deals with this eye wall replacement cycle right now. But fingers crossed that it continues to struggle as it has, and it continues to struggle as it moves closer to shore.
And one thing that I noticed earlier today was absolutely remarkable, Devon. The eye temperature, we don't know exactly what it went from and what it went to, because we're looking at the Indian satellites, and we learned later on that they're a little bit miscalibrated. But still, the raw number of, from X to Y, or whatever, from A to Z, how much it actually decreased the eye temperature, to show you how quickly the storm was capitulating earlier. It went from, I won't say the numbers, but it went down 87 degrees Celsius in 4 hours, I think it was, or 5 hours. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Not over water.
Yeah, and obviously the storm didn't weaken that fast over water. So, a storm doesn't just drop from Category 5 intensity to mid-range Cat 2 in 4 hours. That just doesn't happen. Even over land, that doesn't happen. So...
Well, that's unless you're looking at the old 1950s and 60s for track maps. When strange things like that tended to happen. Most
I think we know better than that now.
We know better than that.
But just taking a look at this, one thing that should be noted is that the minus 80-degree cloud top coverage has significantly increased in the past 4 hours. Which I'm sure that Nathan would be able to show very clearly. And the second thing to note on the infrared is that you could almost tell that the storm is really fighting with itself right now.
Yeah.
With the two eye walls being, I think, even very clear on infrared imagery. Just the fact that it's really struggling with its structure right now. But once it stops struggling with its structure and starts to clear out, once that inner eye wall finally dies, which is something that it's been a bugger with this storm, this inner eye wall. It has not wanted to die. It was so strong before that it just isn't wanting to die and give way to the outer eye wall. And as long as that continues to happen, this storm is going to continue to not be at an intensity that it otherwise could be at, which is obviously a good thing for West Bengal, and interests in Bangladesh.
Yeah. We'll take loads of questions, send them in, start your message with Force 13 all in text. But Isaac, you've been watching the radar pretty much all day. What's the latest on there?
On the newest frame as of 50 UTC, it's going to update here actually in about a minute, so I'll update that in a few seconds here. But you could easily see the concentric eye walls here on radar. Earlier it had another concentric eye wall. This was actually the outer eye wall at first when I was looking at past radar of this, and merged into one eye wall, and then now you could perhaps see like what I'm. Hopefully you can see my cursor right there highlighting a possible second.
No, we don't
eye
have
wall
your cursor, but we can get.
It's a little moat between the two yellow
You can
parts.
definitely see the moat, yes.
And that's been evident for about the past hour or so on radar. And before that, it had also concentric eye walls before that too. So I don't know if we have any further comments about that.
Now, Devon, earlier on, you were speculating to me, and I don't know if you're going to retract this or whether you still think it's the case that this might be going annular.
Hell, I would say 6 hours ago it had that look to it. Definitely doesn't have that look anymore.
Okay. Well, that solves
6 hours
that one,
ago it had that look that, oh man, this thing's going to pop out a massive eye in the next few hours. But the inner eye wall, and that would have happened if the inner eye wall died.
Yeah.
And the inner eye wall is still not dead. So that's probably, that is significantly
a silver lining there.
Significantly less likely to happen.
A silver lining on that one. Luke, you're also showing us the latest track that you've produced on behalf of Force 13 with the latest forecast cone there. What are your thoughts and how did you come to that conclusion?
So what we've been seeing recently was that the system was going through its eyewall replacement cycle, and we took Devon's advice and kept it at 130. And I just took some considerations, and I do believe that the inner eyewall, will begin to erode and die in the next few hours, and that will give it a chance to actually re-intensify a bit in the next 12 hours. But after that, I do believe this will start to weaken once again and make a Cat 3 landfall near the Calcutta or West Bangladesh or just West Bengal area. And after that, it becomes Cat 1 overland in 48 hours, and then it just dissipates in 72 hours. So not expected to live long, but it could cause some major impacts in the amount of time it has left.
Yeah, so at this juncture, where are we putting the most vulnerable location at right now?
I'll have to get the map back up.
I would say probably Western Bangladesh or the Calcutta region in India, or you could consider it West Bengal. Those areas are probably going to be the hardest hit from the system and are probably the most vulnerable to it.
You can also see now on the screen first visible imagery of the cyclone as well. It doesn't look quite as good as it did on yesterday's visible imagery. It's missing one quite obvious conspicuous feature, and that's an eye on the visible imagery, but it still does look, for those of us who have seen cyclones a lot over the years, it looks like one of those storms that has still got a very large amount of strength, maybe a storm that's just made landfall somewhere as a Category 5, or a storm that's it's almost like it has just made landfall and it's just weakening from its Category 5 peak earlier today.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. And one thing that's also noticeable about it is that its size is increasing dramatically. And as of 18Z, it's actually tied as the third largest cyclone in the North Indian Ocean, which is a notable fact.
Now, that's some research I certainly haven't done, so I have no idea whether that's true or not. I'll take your word for it. And of course, there's many different ways of measuring that, though, as well. What's the measurement?
I was measuring by average gale force wind field, which I know is not exactly the measurement that everybody uses, but it's a pretty good indicator of just how large the cyclone is in general.
I see. Yeah, there's a few different ways of doing it. You can measure it by wind diameter, wind radius averages. That's what you just did, yeah?
That would be correct.
You can average it by, I mean, gee, one of the most rudimentary ways is just to measure the extent of the cloud cover in association with the storm, or you could measure the innermost parts, the larger areas of the cloud tops, or you can measure it on isobars, either the outermost closed isobar or the 1000 millibar isobar, which turns out to be quite a bit more helpful when looking at older cyclones, which quite often only had charts before the satellite era. But it certainly is a large storm, there's no doubting that, and that must be a factor in this. And speaking of which, Devon, any news on the latest CDPS?
No, nothing's really changed on that front.
So could you just remind us what it currently is?
It would be a CDPS Stage 6 right now, considering a Category 3 landfall with winds of 120 miles an hour.
Still pretty bad.
Yes, still very bad.
If I remember right, Stage 6 is catastrophic, or is that...
No, Stage 6 is definitely still in the potentially catastrophic region.
Not catastrophic.
I think it's devastating or catastrophic.
No, Stage 6 definitely still in the catastrophic region.
All right.
Still not good either way, so...
All points aside, it could bring a potentially catastrophic storm surge to the region because of its large size and intensity, and that's what we should be focusing on. Because a lot of the areas that it's striking are very low-lying and low elevation, which makes them particularly vulnerable to the surge.
So yeah, just because the CDPS is now like the 7 or 8, it does not like that it was before. It does not mean that the guard that people have been getting needs to be dropped down at all. This is still a pretty big situation right now, and with so many millions of people being affected by Amphan, this is just possibly going to be a disaster that I hope that everyone will make it safe out of.
Yeah.
Does anyone know about these evacuations? Because a lot of I've heard little bits here and there about mass evacuations that are taking place now.
Alright, I got some information. More than 1 million people are preparing to evacuate from the storm, and the Odisha government, the Odisha state government, has directed emergency personnel to evacuate people in low-lying areas. And as you can know, there are a lot of low-lying areas in front of this storm right now.
Yep.
And it is expected to produce a pretty huge storm surge. It could be up to 30 feet, I just read.
Oh well, we were talking about that earlier on in one of our earlier productions. Devon, you were talking about comparing storm surges. You were throwing about those kinds of numbers, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the best comparison for this system would be Cyclone Severe. You're still looking at that being the... I mean, obviously, Severe is a Stage 7, this is a Stage 6, but also you have to consider, even though the winds are lower, this storm's going to be a lot larger than Severe. So, there's a potential there for it to still go into Stage 7. It depends on how large the storm actually gets. By the time it gets to land, we'll see what happens here. But obviously, right now, the Shakira, the Quina, Pagarkat, and Jessore regions of Bangladesh are definitely underneath the largest risk for significant flooding impacts from this storm.
And as we did mention, with India possibly being affected by this as well, seeing some of the impacts, Prime Minister Modi did order a complete evacuation of those residing in the cyclone's path, as well as meeting with the National Disaster Response Force. So there's a lot of countries that are in the path taking action at the moment, which is a good.
Yeah.
And that would be the case, as this could deliver potentially catastrophic impacts to both far eastern India and Bangladesh as well. So, because of its large size, there's no one specific area that's going to be focused on. It's going to be pretty widespread when it does.
And speaking of possible flooding, there is some worries that there is expected to cause heavy rains and possible flooding to these huge refugee camps they have in Bangladesh, where hundreds of thousands of people are living in pretty terrible conditions. And to make matters worse, that the first case of that where it has been reported in these camps last week, I believe. So
Yeah, there's no good situation going on here at all.
I mean, when you have a big storm, it doesn't really matter how intense it is. I mean, at least it has to be in a Category 2 status. It can produce as much storm surge as a smaller system with higher winds, and that's what we're gonna probably see here with the system. This system, I've said this before in past live streams, it's a behemoth. It's absolutely huge, and that's one of the main factors that could cause devastating storm surge to the low-lying regions of the Ganges River Delta.
So, Devon, I think this question may have already come up somewhere, but I'll raise it preemptively if they haven't. I think there'll be a lot of comparisons at the moment to the cyclone in 1999, which is very well known for striking the eastern part of India. It was one of the most intense cyclones to do so. Do you think this is the worst storm since then? Or do you think there have been others that surpassed that one since then?
No, I think that's accurate.
So we're saying here a best case scenario is the worst cyclone we've seen in this region for 21 years.
Yeah, that's unfortunately about right.
And that's something I agree with as well. We were worrying about the worst case scenario of it being the worst cyclone in 188 years. But I don't think that's going to happen at this point. And hopefully it's not as bad as the 1991 cyclone, which I don't think it will be at this point because it's continuing, or at least it looks like it's going to trend towards a landfall probably in West Bengal now, right?
yes. And you're right, and officially, it is the first supercyclonic storm as designated by the IMD in the Bay of Bengal since the 1999 cyclone.
Is it? Is it really?
Yes, I think it is.
I would like.
I don't think Cyclone Sidur was a supercyclonic storm. Nope, it was an extremely severe.
Or Phelan?
Nope, no Phelan.
Oh, what else have we had?
Well,
sadly, the storm is not failing.
No, it's certainly not failing. Oh, I can't think of any others now. Maybe there weren't any others then. Maybe you are right.
I can confirm that the last supercyclonic storm in the Bay of Bengal was the 1999.
Well, there we have it.
I wanted to mention something that was said in the chat. As previously stated earlier in here, they did say that this was the third largest cyclone in the North Indian Ocean. Well, someone did point out that from the northern side to the southern side, which includes the cloud cover, this is 694 miles in diameter.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's about what it's been during its intensification phase.
Pretty big.
And I do want to note that the third largest statistic was based on gale force wind radius and not necessarily the cloud cover, so just to make that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what stock you put into it all. I mean, wind radius, quite important. Something we're not done yet on our show tonight. We are here for just the hour at this point, and then I think we're going to have a change in our schedule because things are getting a little bit, uncertain and a bit crazy. We do feel it's a better alternative at this point to finish up our live coverage at the end of this hour and produce regular 6-hourly updates on the channel and on social media elsewhere as well. So I want to give you an idea of what schedule's coming up so that you're aware of these timings, so that you can get the very latest information as soon as it comes out. The next update will be at 8 a.m. UTC, which is 1:30 p.m. Indian time, and then thereafter there will be updates every 6 hours on the Force 13 YouTube channel and on our Facebook page, with regular updates on Twitter and other social media in between. But we will be finishing up with our live coverage because we're really, our apologies, we're not particularly well ready for this. The off-season time, April, May, is usually the time where we prep for the rest of the season, and we are conserving resources, but we are not, I really want to stress that we are not doing this. We have made the calculation to... we've made the calculation that doing those updates is enough at this point by the end of tonight's stream. So that's one good reason to subscribe to this channel, because you'll get those updates in your notifications as soon as they come out, and that'll be every 6 hours. This storm currently has winds of 130 miles per hour and a pressure of 934 millibars. That's our latest estimate, 257 miles southeast of Srikakulam, which is just to the northeast of Visakhapatnam in the Andhra Pradesh region of India, not too far from the border with Odisha. And that was a while ago, so it's probably a little bit closer now. We'll get some rainfall looks on that shortly, but in the meantime, is there anything that anyone wants to bring up right now?
I got a radar loop that I've made over the past 2 hours.
Okay.
Starting at 18:30 UTC to now.
Just waiting for that to load here. Okay, we got it.
And you can see at the beginning the small inner eye wall shrinking and then going, being absorbed into that bigger eye wall, and then later on after that, in the last few frames, you see there what appears to be another moat forming, so perhaps another eye wall is trying to form and choke out the eye wall that's in the middle currently, from what it appears to be on radar. And I have some visible looks.
Getting clearer there here as well in those images, and there's some visible. Oh, well, that's interesting.
So we're talking triple eye wall
now?
now?
That image is quite interesting. How long ago was that? Is that just now?
Ooh.
About 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago. So, well, clear signs of certainly an indentation. Are we going to call it an eye? I'm not sure. If it is, it looks open on the southeast.
Boy. Yeah.
Like I said, they're on radar. It appears, from what I'm seeing, another eye wall replacement cycle may be trying to be in the works here, so we'll see if that holds on or not.
I've also been regularly checking the Indian satellites as well, because they've got a better look than the Himawari satellite due to the satellite positioning in space. The Indian satellite gets to look into the storm just that little bit better to see how deep the eye is. I don't think that's going to be a particular issue right now, considering how very little of an eye there actually is. But let me just get the latest information about a possible eye temperature, and it's still really indiscernible actually, so there's no point me even going and looking at the numbers. Nothing really appearing on the imagery. Now I want to move on to... I want to give you an idea of what's going on offshore. This, which is 25 to 30, then the light rose color, which is 30 to 40, then you've got red, which is 40 to 45, then to the purple violet color there, which is mainly on the south side right now, 45 to 55 millimeters of rain per hour, and as you can see, quite a lot of black still there around the southern side as well, and that denotes values higher than 55 millimeters per hour of rain. If that comes ashore like that, producing that amount of rainfall, then that would be cataclysmic in some localized areas. If you got that amount of rainfall, I mean, goodness me, that's 2, maybe even 3 inches of rain in 1 hour.
Just amazing. Well, just it's so hard to like comprehend that. To be
But going
honest.
back to the more accurate representation, which is on Isaac's screen, what kind of rain rates are we getting there? Do we know?
Devin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
We're trying to communicate with
Well, I
Isaac.
Hello.
Oh.
Sorry, I read means 4.5 dBz on there. I don't know what that would amount to in terms of rainfall in millimeters or inches. It does appear to be on the middle top part of the scale there that they have. It goes up
That's
to 60
45, not
dBz.
4.5, right?
Yeah, 45. 45.0 is what it says.
And I'm not massively familiar with how these translate to rain rates, so if anyone does know, please help us.
Yeah, I'm not either. So
How
we're
much did you
both
say for
in the
DBZ?
same boat.
How much did you say for DBZ?
4.5.
45
I mean, not
maximum.
4.5, but 45.
45 is 23.7 millimeters an hour.
Okay, all right then.
Nose to loop again.
So based on that extrapolation, you're seeing quite a few light blues, maybe 1 or 2 whites coming in there. So you're talking somewhere around 10 millimeters per hour in some areas to the northeast of Visakhapatnam, areas around Srikakulam, and up the coast by a couple dozen miles, probably getting the worst of any rainfall right now. Would say up to 10 millimeters per hour in that area at this time, but some more bands moving in, Isaac.
Yep, they're starting to get piled up onto the coastline and probably going to bring some flooding with it along the way.
All right, just if you've just joined us, 7:03 is the time in India right now. This May 19th, Cyclone Amphan is getting closer, but it's not getting stronger anymore. You'll be very relieved to learn. Last night, local time, it peaked as an extremely powerful 165 mile per hour storm. That in kilometers per hour must be quite a lot. I think it's 270 kilometers per hour, roughly. And a pressure of around 901 millibars, which, as we said earlier, is the most intense cyclone in the modern era in the North Indian Ocean. So yeah, go ahead.
165 miles an hour is officially 265 kilometers an hour.
265 kilometers per hour. Just the 5 difference there. And this storm has weakened substantially, although we've got a problem. We don't know exactly how strong it is anymore because the best satellite estimates that we've got aren't the best because there isn't an eye anymore. So we are sort of flying a bit blind.
Actually, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has officially updated the best track, and it's now 120 knots.
So they're going with 140 miles per hour in their latest update. We're sticking with 130 miles per hour. What pressure have they got on that?
They have 931 millibars.
931, which I would think would be just a tad high for that mile per hour at this stage, but not too far from the mark. We're not that much different in our estimates.
Yeah, right now the JTWC predicts it will re-strengthen back up to 130 knots, which would be 150 miles.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Devon, what do you think of that?
Makes sense.
Well, that would be a big worry.
They're still predicting a major hurricane landfall, 110 knots. It looks like, just off of Kolkata.
I said
I
this
have
earlier, but this is
the
just reminding me of Matthew.
I have
You
the
know how?
JTWs.
Yeah. We'll get to that shortly. But just how it had that Category 5 peak, which we've now disproved, and then it started not looking so good, and then it started looking better and then better and better up until that landfall in Haiti. It's just reminding me of that.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and Kolkata is a really populated city, and it's really worrying to see the potential impacts from there because a very large Category 3 cyclone making landfall there, it would not end well, to say the least.
I got the graphic pulled up in the screen shared. So
We're with Luke right now on that cone. Luke?
cool.
Okay, so right now you can see they are estimating in 12 hours. At this point, near the right north of it, 150 miles per hour. Then they have it holding its intensity for around 24 hours for 140 miles per hour. Then they have it before making landfall in West Bengal near Kolkata region. They have it as 125 miles per hour. So a Cat 3 landfall they are predicting, and then they predict it to weaken rapidly once it gets on land. And this track does bring some significant storm surge to those low-lying areas on the northeastern side in western Bangladesh region.
Yep. So that's still not looking very good. So that's concerning me, and how they're predicting re-strengthening, which we hoped wouldn't be the case. But that's just some bad vibes I'm getting out of that.
I'm reading the JTWC text right now. They basically said that this has been an eyewall replacement cycle that has caused definitely.
Well, duh, absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, we got the 6.5 Dvorak estimates right now. It's still in very warm 31 to 32 degrees Celsius waters with wind shear around mid 20 knots. So
how many?
It's 15 to 20 knot wind shear right now.
15 to 20.
And yeah, so it's still got pretty good favorable conditions right now. So that will help it.
All right.
Which is not what we wanted.
We got about 20 minutes to run here. Send in your questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text if you're watching us on YouTube right now. I believe we are simulcasting on Facebook. David's not actually in the room with us to confirm that.
Oh, that's not good.
But last I heard we were. So I don't know if anyone wants to take a look on there and see if anyone has posted any comments. Sorry if we're forgetting about you. There is a lot going on. What's not good?
We do expect it will intensify again. I just read the next part of the JTWC, and that is really a bit of a concerning thing.
Do you want to read that out to
us? So they're thinking that the eyewall replacement cycle should be done within the next 24 hours, and they're thinking that a much broader eye will be forming as a result.
Yep. That is correct.
I mean, there's very warm water extending all the way to the coastline. So yeah, there's really a prediction that this could actually strengthen more than we really want it to right now.
It is a possibility. What I can say right now is on recent frames, taking a look at infrared, the coverage of minus 80 degree cloud tops has waned a little bit.
It is starting to look just a wee bit more disorganized in those latest frames.
But I'm taking a look at the way that the center, you could really see the two circles of clouds. So you could see an inner circle clearly there. And then you can also see the outer circle, which is kind of broken a little bit on the top. But you can very clearly see there's two circles in there. So there's still two eye walls fighting each other very hard for dominance in this storm. And obviously the inner eye wall is going to lose because it's not going to get fed enough. But just the fact that there's this tiny little structural deficiency in this storm is what's preventing this from being an absolute bloody monster.
Wow.
So just to inform about the model guidance that the JTWC is going off of by. So with the 12 hours when they're predicted to be 130 knots, that's actually slightly below what they have thought, and then after that it's a little bit higher. So pretty much they're thinking that it could be, the models have been trying to show that it could possibly be over 130 knots, which would definitely not be good. But then after that, that's when it becomes a little more confusing on what the intensity will be as it gets towards landfall.
Oh dear,
Yeah, obviously,
I shouldn't laugh at this pun, but Matthew Jones says War of the Walls. That is what it is right now.
Right, and
Dreadful pun.
while these eye walls are fighting for dominance, obviously the inner ones being robbed of moisture, the outer ones trying to cover it up, and that's effectively going to have a toll on the storm's structure, which is good because it'll keep weakening. But yeah, it's not clear how much longer it's going to go on for.
And obviously, once it ends up going back to having one eye wall, rapid intensification cannot be ruled out at any stage.
Ugh.
And that's what the JTWC is kind of hinting at the moment.
I just wanted to quickly talk about earlier how you were asking if Facebook was live, and I can confirm we are live on Facebook. I don't really see much in the way of questions
Welcome.
other than somebody saying Chittagong have danger area to Cyclone Amphan.
Beg your pardon?
Somebody just said Chittagong have danger area to Cyclone Amphan.
Whether Chittagong is in danger from the storm. Well, it's looking less and less likely here. Maybe some gusty winds, and that's about it, do you think?
Yeah, I'd say...
Gary, you did say something about fighting wind shear. There is really not much wind shear, only 10 to 15 knots, which would be in the low category at the moment.
Right. And back to Chittagong...
Fighting wind shear for another 24 hours.
Really? Who else was speaking just then? Sorry.
Oh, that would be
I was talking about one of the comments on the chat.
We'll go to Elliot first.
So yeah, back to the Chittagong question. Yeah, given the large size of the storm, I would not rule out seeing some gusty winds, maybe to gale force. Who knows? But yeah, I think you should avoid the worst of the storm. It's going to be further to the west.
Given that it's a large storm, and what was that comment?
So I was talking about how someone mentioned wind shear, but there really isn't much right now, at least for the next 24 hours, as 10 to 15 knots is in the low stage. Someone did ask if there would be a Category 2 landfall possible. We are actually anticipating that or higher at this point. JTWC is currently predicting a high-end Cat 3 landfall.
I've seen a lot of people today in the last few hours that have been looking at this storm's decomposition as it has been for a little while. And they've revised their estimates way down to, she's talking 100 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. Admittedly, JTWC did do that not long ago. About, must be getting towards 24 hours ago now. Well, you just said on that forecast that they're going to up it to 150 miles per hour on the forecast. Is that a landfall intensity, or does it weaken still?
No,
it's still forecast. Oh, sorry.
It does?
Yeah, so they're basically forecasting it to peak, its second peak in 12 hours, pretty much. 12 to 24 hours after it finishes the tidal replacement cycle. And then it should weaken, and then that's when they predict the landfall should be around 110 knots at the moment.
All right, then. We have some more questions. Ike says, any chances that the storm will change course?
Any models showing anything other than a landfall on the India-Bangladesh border?
All the models have been saying that the landfall is pretty much inevitable, so I mean...
I've not been looking at models since we first went live, so...
The GFS ensembles have it making landfall on the border between Bangladesh and India, and then the CMC have it making landfall pretty much all on Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're basically So, basically we're still looking at a spread of landfalls. It doesn't look like that it's going to curve west.
The net is closing in.
Yeah, it does not look like that it's going to shoot off to the east and
No.
significantly affect Myanmar. And it doesn't look like that it's going to curve off to the west and significantly affect Andhra Pradesh.
I was just about.
Yeah, that's at least what it's looking like right now.
So we're talking Odisha, West Bengal, and Western Bangladesh right now.
All of Bangladesh.
All of Bangladesh still?
I would say maybe the easternmost lake that comes down, like Chittagong.
Yeah.
That probably won't get too significant of impacts, but we're talking the most significant impacts will be West Bengal, the western half of Bangladesh, with any kind of like tropical storm force wind impact. You would extend that out to Odisha and out to all of Bangladesh.
Someone did ask its radius. Its radius is currently 398 miles at the moment.
I don't think that would be the radius. That would be the diameter.
That's not for the wind speed. That's not for the wind speed and such. I'm talking about like, the top clouds to the bottom, so the southern clouds. That's the radius of all. Yeah.
When I hear storm radius, I think tropical storm force winds.
Yeah, so do I. It also depends which clouds we're talking about. Are we talking the -80s? Let's just measure it from the center here. The -80s, they do go out a respectable number, about 180 miles to the south, which is quite a bit.
I have the Model 1 samples on my screen if anybody's interested in seeing that.
I think we will be interested in that. Let's try and get that up here. That's going to take a short moment here. Here we are. As you can see, that web is closing in.
This is the GFS ensembles, and then this is the CMC.
Oh, okay, I stand corrected. CMC has a much larger spread there.
CMC, GFS.
Wow. I mean, even though we're a bit more certain on where the landfall is, I mean, there's still tons of... Well, I wouldn't say tons of. There's still quite a bit of uncertainty where this landfall point will be, but the impacts are still going to be major. We've already narrowed it down to basically the two regions that are going to get impacted the most. The question is that where is it going to exactly make landfall in those two regions?
And we're still looking at the landfall time will probably be in the late morning or early afternoon tomorrow, Wednesday.
It should be noted that, at least according to JTWC numbers, that this storm went from being a borderline Cat 4 to 165 mile an hour Cat 5 to back being a borderline Cat 4 all in the span of 30 hours.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And, you know, it's very easy to look at this imagery on the Himawari, which updates every 10 minutes, sometimes better, and jump to conclusions, knee-jerk reactions. But I think we're all convinced here this storm actually did do what we just thought we saw that it did.
No, I would...
You're not convinced?
I'm very convinced
Okay.
that satellite imagery, except for right now, satellite imageries are not very convincing.
Yeah, sure.
Because some microwave stuff's going on. We'll just have to see what the storm looks like in the morning here over in the States. Because it looks like that, this eyewall replacement cycle, it's not going to be completed this morning, India time. It's not going to be completed this afternoon, India time. It's gonna take a long while to finally get this thing fully situated.
That's
but once
bad.
it does,
that's bad.
So
I mean, some
asked...
storms never complete their eyewall replacement cycles before dying, which is good news. But if this one did, Devon, then you're saying here that 12 hours from landfall, it's going to be primed and ready to do a big bout of rapid intensification.
Expecting it to be. We were going to get a peak, Cat 4, Cat 5, somewhere in there. We're going to get a peak. Then it was going to do whatever it was going to do for 36 hours. And right now we're on like hour 18 of that.
Yeah.
So put in another 18 hours to that to get to 36 hours. And you would have a 24-hour weakening period before landfall. That's still what we're looking at here.
Yeah, definitely.
It's certainly not going to be solved immediately. We are running out of time here. Let's take some questions. Could it become a Category 5 again? Does anyone in this room think it could become a Category 5 again?
Well, could, yes. Are the probabilities good? Not particularly. But it's still possible. Sure. The conditions are there.
It's lost enough time, I would say.
It entirely depends on how much time. Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's putt-putting around with its eyewall replacement cycle right now, I wouldn't rate... If this thing was out in open and it had its current conditions holding, I would say 185 miles an hour in 24 hours. But that's not what we're dealing with here. We've got increasing shear, and we've got increasing land interaction. I don't see it being a Cat 5.
Farhan has asked, what are the chances of landfall over the Sundarbans? Those are at least one island or a group of islands in the western part of Bangladesh, not too far from the border with India. So there is a chance at that location, you would say.
There would probably be anything that I would think that the most likely landfall is going to be somewhere like I would guess, say 50 kilometers either side of the India-Bangladesh border. It's probably going to be the most likely at this time.
Okay. Is this storm taking a track like Fani last year?
No, Fani was was more significantly west. Way more significantly west. This storm's not going to track over Andhra Pradesh and Odisha like Phony did before it gets to West Bengal and Bangladesh. This thing's going to stay over water.
Its current movement speed is not 0. I don't know why someone did say that in the chat. It is moving.
It is definitely moving.
Someone did say this could be typhoon tip. That is definitely not going to be the case. I can assure you.
Oh my
that.
goodness!
This is not a tip. I'm sorry, not a tip.
A new radar frame. A new radar frame just came in, and I'm wondering what you guys think about it.
Hating Hayden has just posted a comment. I just need to clarify this. A little discrepancy in what we're showing. You can see it right now, actually. At the bottom it says 932 millibars. At the top it says 934. We're running with 934 right now. The bottom one is the one that's out of date. We are working with this new format, and not everything is getting updated at the same time. But we are getting closer. But we're struggling because this storm hit right when we were transitioning with our software. So we're doing our very best with what we've got right now. Effectively, you are watching a construction site whilst we've got this massive cyclone going on. Let's see, what else have we got? Will it slow down? I guess that adds on to what we've just been speaking about movement wise.
No, not forecasted to slow down.
Okay. Will it speed
right now
up?
Right now it's looking to be moving around 8 knots an hour.
Do you think it will speed up?
It's not really expected to speed up or slow down either.
Okay.
Maintain.
Well, there we go. Will the eye come back soon? I think that's the question everyone wants answered right now.
12 hours.
12 hours.
12 hours.
Good.
Someone did ask, could the storm make landfall as a Category 5?
That is extremely unlikely.
It's the year 2020.
Yeah. Cat 5 landfall from this is extremely unlikely, and I would be both shocked and horrified if that were to pan out, because something went catastrophically wrong if that ends up happening.
Well, if it does make a Category 5 landfall, I will move to a desert island and pretend that the end of the world is nigh.
Yeah,
The
that's
end is
right.
nigh. The end is nigh.
Here's another question, though, more seriously. Could the wind shear tear it apart today?
Not today.
No.
Not
The
today.
wind shear, as we have described, is low. It's only 10 to 15 knots, which really does not affect the storm much. It's until after 24 hours from that the wind shear becomes a little hostile for the storm and starts weakening it.
Someone is writing down what I just said. Okay, wonderful. Hey, well, let's hope it doesn't make landfall as Category 5 because that desert island will be the worst of our concerns. Oh, just a note. Arthur is leaving North Carolina. There are no warnings there. They were lifted a couple hours ago. So just in case you were wondering about that, that's all gone. Devon's really happy.
Do they still have it named?
Yes, they do, yes.
Why?
Okay, we're never going to convince Devon that Arthur was a tropical storm, are we?
It may or may not have been a tropical storm. I think that's irrelevant. The question is, should it have been named?
That's going into... Okay, that's a much different territory that we're going to have to cover another day. But we are now out of time, believe it or not. That went by real quick, didn't it?
Yes.
Certainly did.
I hope that this isn't too loud. I bet you it is, because we're still working with our software and trying to make things not come out extremely loud when that probably just did, and I can't even hear whether you heard that or not. Oh, you can hear it now. Okay, wonderful. That's the end of our live stream. We're sorry it wasn't better, but I think we did at least a fairly good job. So, as I said before, thanks for the team, by the way. Thanks very much for being with us once again tonight. They have done an amazing job over the last few days, I can tell you that much. But here at Force 13 HQ, that's it for now. That's it from our live coverage. We will be shutting down the stream in a few minutes after this finishes up. But we are not abandoning you. Please stay tuned to the Force 13 channel. Subscribe to the channel, or you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13 all in text. We will be doing 6 hourly storm updates on this storm. The next one will be at 1:30 p.m. Indian time, and then every 6 hours after that. So that's 1:30 and 7:30 every day, AM and PM, until this storm is no longer a threat. So that's what we will be doing, and if there are exceptional circumstances, we will be back live again. I have to give you a little admission. I've been having a lot of trouble recently. I've been rather unwell, actually. So it's been a particularly difficult time for me to produce this stream, and the last streams that we've been doing for days, covering Vongfong and covering this storm, where we've been doing enormous amounts of coverage. We've had 2 red alerts here in a week, and we usually get only about 4 or 5 every year. It's been a very stressful time, very strenuous time for all of us. I've been sitting in a chair falling asleep at 11 p.m, but I don't want to stop story. We are here to commit our duty to you, and we will stick around. That's about it for now. This storm remains dangerous. We'll see you again soon. Stay safe out there. This was Force 13 Live. We'll see you again soon. Good night.